Torah Garden, speaking the absolute truth. Torah Nation.
Shalom, shalom, shalom. Yasharal and Yahudah. Grafted in Gentiles into body of Hamashiach. Listen, I love Yahuwah. I love Yahuwah. I love Yahuwah. I love his son, Yahushua Hamashiach. It's he who has become the high priest of my Yeshua. I give Yahuwah praise for Yahushua Hamashiach, witness. Because of Yahushua Hamashiach as a people, Yasharal and Yahudah, we can be established. Our names, which are written in the Shamayim, can be a reality again. Because of sin, our forefathers missed this. This witness is everything. And I give Yahuwah praise right now for this witness. I give Yahuwah praise. I give him praise. Yahuwah, the name of Yahushua Hamashiach, I honor you. I give you the sacrifice of praise. Holy, 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 holy are you, Yahuwah. All praise and honor and glory be unto you. Yahuwah, I pray that you will take the reins of my lips and take the reins of my tongue and reign. Yahuwah, I pray that I would not cause anyone to stumble, anyone to be turned out of the way, anyone to come up lame. Yahuwah, I submit myself to the Ruach HaKodesh. I submit myself to the Ruach HaKodesh. I submit myself to the Ruach HaKodesh. Yahuwah, you said that from my belly shall flow rivers of living waters. This ye spake of the Ruach HaKodesh, that they were to receive. Well, Yahuwah, I receive the Ruach and Emunah. I receive the glory. I receive the manifestation of the power in the name of Yahushua Hamashiach. And by this witness, I pray that you would speak to your people, those that you have chosen, those who have an ear to hear, those who want to receive the word of Yahuwah. I pray that they would receive your word. I pray that they would receive your word, Yahuwah, in the name of Yahushua Hamashiach. I give you praise. I give you praise. I give you praise. I give you praise. Yahuwah, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. Yahuwah, I submit myself to you. I yield myself to you. I yield myself as an instrument of righteousness. And I pray in the name of Yahushua Hamashiach that you would grant me the privilege of speaking through me by your Ruach HaKodesh. In the name of Yahushua Hamashiach, I pray. Yahuwah, listen, the allure Yahuwah of Yisrael, right? The Yahuwah allure of the nation is going to visit and is visiting the Eretz. I give Yahuwah praise for his word. I give Yahuwah praise for the Basor and the Torah of truth. I give Yahuwah praise because he is worthy of praise. He is worthy of exaltation. He's worthy of adoration. I praise Yahuwah because he is worthy to be praised. Listen, we are in Ezra, still the 7th chapter. But it's okay though, because Yahuwah is working his plan out. And again, we understand Ezra is that prophet, right? Who was given the responsibility of crying loud and sparing not in a time in which the nation was in captivity. At the time in which the nation was in captivity, having been in captivity over 30 years, right? They were living out their rebellion. They were living out the consequences of their rebellion. They were living out the consequences of their wickedness, of their decisions. The elves that they have chosen have now become the elves that they were subject to, right? See, as a nation, when we had Yahuwah, our forefathers had Yahuwah as our Lord. Listen, we were free to do what we needed to do as long as we didn't violate Torah, right? That was a freedom that was received from Yahuwah because of our obedience and our commitment to keeping Torah, right? But when our forefathers served other elves, right, they relinquished Yahuwah's security. They relinquished Yahuwah's presence, right? Right? They gave it up. And they began to serve these other elves, where these other elves doesn't protect them. These other elves can't deliver them. These other elves can't stand up for them. So when they served these other elves, and the other nations that came against them took them in captivity, they were actually serving the other elves. And the people that took them in captivity were serving their elves. So Yahuwah just gave them what they wanted. Right? You can't serve Yahuwah and serve other elves. You can't serve Yahuwah and serve Babylon. You can't yield yourself as instruments of righteousness and then unrighteousness and expect a righteous return. It can't be done. You have to serve the one and hate the other, or love the one and despise the other. Listen, you have to be committed to this covenant. See, and Yahuwah loved you so much, Yahshua, right, that he sent Yahushua HaMashiach. He sent the witness. He sent the means of restoration. He sent a method by which the covenant could be renewed to a people first, Yahshua and Yehuda, right, and to the other nations. Yahuwah has always had an order. Yahuwah's order has always been to his people first and then to the other nations. You got to receive this witness, right? So Ezra was that prophet preaching to the people in a captive state, right? Declaring to them what Yahuwah had told them to say. Ezra declared a word to them before the captivity, and they didn't receive it. They considered what he said as nothing, right? They despised Yahuwah's commandments. So into captivity they went, right? Serving their other elves. And it is at that time, in captivity for 30 years, Ezra is on his bed seeing all of the wickedness that has happened to the people. And then again, we understand that he went through a series of questions with regards to the nation. Why the heathens are ruling over your people, Yahuwah. Well, you are my people if you keep my commandments. You are my people if you obey my statutes. You are my people if you turn to me, right? I will restore the relationship, right? But when you're serving other else, you're not my people. You gotta understand. You gotta serve Yahuwah. Man's gotta serve Yahuwah. And only those who serve Yahuwah in Ruach and in truth, right, are going to receive his kingdom, right? So we left off in Ezra, the 7th chapter, and it was around the 34th, 35th verse, I think we finished up. And we're moving into the 36th verse, if I'm not mistaken. Right? So in this previous section, right, we learn how Yahuwah has intended to bring judgment, right, and restoration, right, to secure a place for a people, right? And this earth, this eretz, is going to pass away, right? Right? Yahuwah has established a place for a few, right? At the end of the age, right? An eternal place, right? Right? We understand that he's going to destroy it all, right? And in Ezra, it says that the son died, and along with everyone in the Eretz, right? Like Yahusha. Oh, that's what he says. He says, and after 29, and after these years shall my son Hamashiach die, and all men that have life at the end of the age. See, Yahuwah's got to establish a righteousness, and everything has to be cleansed. Right? Everything has to be cleansed. Everything has to be cleansed. Yahushua is going to reign in the Eretz. Yahushua is going to come in our time. Right? And in our time, he's going to reign on the Eretz. Right? And he's going to rule with the rod of iron. Right? And we're going to rule with him with said iron rod. Right? These nations are still going to be existing and thriving. Right? Right? For 400 years. Right? He says here in Ezra that after Yahushua comes and establishes his kingdom in the Eretz, after having gathered the people, right, and established the kingdom, right, he's going to reign with a rod of iron, right, right. See, now in the new heaven, in the new Eretz, there's not going to be a need for a rod of iron rule. Because Yahuwah is going to sit on the throne, and only the righteous few are going to live in this kingdom. Only the righteous few are going to live in the Eretz that Yahuwah makes over again. See, that's the eternal life. Right? That's the eternal life. Because, you got to understand that there are going to be people, right, in our time. If I should not see the return of Yahushua and partake in the change of his overall leadership, dominion, and structure, right, while on the Eretz, and I should pass away, well, I'm going to remain until the new heaven and the new earth. I'm going to remain in the new heaven and the new earth until Yahuwah produces the new heaven and new earth. Right? But Yahushua Hamashiach is going to return, serve notice on these nations. Babylon is falling, right? The rulership and the structure of things are going to be changed, and Hamashiach is going to rule with the rod of iron. You still got Hasatan that's being bound, for 1,000 years, right? And then you got him being released. This is before the new heaven and the new earth, right? And he's got one more chance to prove, right, that he can commit the impossible. And you know, Yahuwah is doing it because Yahuwah needs to get rid of everything and every inclination of anyone's rebellion against the kingdom leadership. So, you know, they're going to come against Jerusalem. They're going to come against the nation. They're going to camp about Gog and Magog. They're going to get these other nations to come together. Hasatan going to get these other nations to come and get them and surround surround where Yahusha is. Right. In the land, on the continent. Right? Right, not over there. But in the land, on the continent, right? Right, they're going to surround them. Right? And as they surround them, Yahuwah, who's in the Shamayim, right? Because Yahusha is sent to rule for 1,000 years, for 400 years. Well, it's interesting because it says the Hasatan is bound for 1,000 years in Revelation, and Ezra says it's a 400-year reign. Right? So there's a 600-year span that I'm not sure is accounted for, but at the end of the day, Yahushua is going to come and reign. And Hasatan is going to be released. Right? Now, he's going to be bound during Yahushua's reign. And Yahushua is going to reign with a rod of iron. Right? He's going to have dominion. But Hasatan is going to be released, and he's still going to deceive many. He's going to deceive them so much so that they're going to come in battle array and arm themselves to come against Yahushua's kingdom. Right? In the Eretz. Right? And the people. And Yahuwah's like, thank you. I can finally bring this thing to a close. And he speaks a word and everything is, and everyone is wiped out. Right? Every wicked nation, people that were there at that battle is done for. And now Yahuwah says, okay, I've reached my crescendo. I know that I'm at the end of the song. And right now, it's time for me to bring it all to a close. I had to judge it first. I had to judge those that would come against my son. I had to judge those that would come against the people that I've gathered. I had to come against them. Right? But now, you know, Hasatan, judged, bound, lake of fire, along with his cohorts, right? The dragon, the prince of priests of the dragon, I don't remember his name, what he is now, but they all got into the lake of fire. And then Yahuwah judges everyone. Right? And if your name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life, then you're prepared for the new world. Because only people that are written in the Lamb's Book of Life, only those who have received the witness of Yahushua Mashiach, only those that have been born again of the water and the Ruach HaKodesh, only those who receive the testimony of Yahushua, only those that are going in. Yeah. And Yahuwah, of course, he's going to destroy everything. Then he's going to make it a new heaven and a new Eretz. Right? It's going to go through the 7 days rest. Right? It's going to go through the 7-day period where it was as if it was the same as, or it was the same as when he created the heavens and the earth. When he had to start over again. And you know what? In Revelations, it gives you the impression that he did it more than once. Okay? He did it more than once. But this is the grand finale. And you have to understand that this witness is essential. Because without this witness, there's no escaping. And you know what? If Yahuwah should give me the privilege to see his return, right? To hear the trumpets and to see his return, right? Right? And I get a chance to reign with him in his kingdom on the Yahuah'S, Yahushas. It's a beautiful thing, right? To see my Savior, my Lamb that was slain, to see my High Priest forever, to see Shiloh come, and see the people gather to him. And see, that's a blessing. But if I should fall, right, like Shaul and the rest of the men of Yahuwah and the women of Yahuwah that believed in Emunah and staggered not at the promises of Yahuwah, right, waiting for the king's return, right? If I should end before that all happens, in him and his witness, right, I'll see the new heaven and the new Eretz, because there's nothing to compare. There's nothing to compare to it. So Ezra, right? So when we look at Ezra, right, he says in the 29th verse, after these years shall my son Yahusha die, and all men that have life. Everything is going to pass. It's going to be put down, right? And the world shall be turned into the old silence 7 days. The world's going to be turned into the old silence. Right? When water was on the face of the deep, and Yahuwah called the Eretz from out of the water. It's going to go back to the old silence. Right? Like as the former judgments. Like as the former judgments. Right? Now we know a former judgment that occurred at the deluge, when Yahuwah destroyed the Eretz and everything in it and saved Noah and his 3 sons and their wives. Right? There was a period of silence. Right? Except for whatever was in the ark, because, of course, you had all them animals and stuff. But the Eretz, right? And then there was the record of creation, right? Right? There's so many things that would lead one to believe that this has happened before, right? It's happened before. Right? Because there had to be a time of chaos, right? Because you have dinosaurs. Right? Now we know the scripture speaks of dragons in the text. And Ezra alludes to, or Enoch alludes to dragons in the Eretz. Right? But the existence that occurred before then, we just can't find a way to account for, right? Dinosaurs, right? Which means that the judgment had to occur once before. He says here, like of the former judgments, so that no man shall remain. So in these judgments, there was no man that remained, right? Yahuwah caused the destruction of a mankind. Before. He says here, and after 7 days, the world that yet awaketh not, right, shall be raised up. Right? So now you have Yahuwah speaking life unto this world, this new place, right, that is going to rise up, right? And then he says, for 7 days the world that yet awake not shall be raised up and shall die, and that shall die that is corrupt, right? So everything that's corrupt is going to die, right? Right. Everything that Yahuwah is not pleased with in the Eretz has to come to an end, right? He says, and the earth shall restore those that are asleep in her, right? Those that are asleep in her. The Eretz, those that have passed away and yet remain in the Eretz, right? He says, and the earth shall restore those that are asleep in her, and so shall dust those that dwell in silence. So let me read it from the Sefer. Sefer says, we start at the 30th verse. He said, and the world shall be turned into the old silence 7 days, like as in former judgments, so that no man shall remain. And the 7 days, and after 7 days, the world that yet awaketh not shall be raised up. So the world that is not awake shall be waken up, right? And that shall be raised up, and that shall die that is corrupt, right? So anything that after the raising of the Eretz, anything that was before that was corrupt had died, right? And the earth shall restore those that are asleep in her, and so shall the dust those that dwell in silence, and the secret places shall deliver those souls that were committed unto them. It's a secret place. The souls that were committed unto them. Secret place. Where souls were committed. Placed. Right? Right? And El Elyon shall appear upon the seat of judgment, and misery shall pass away, and the long suffering shall have ended. Right, so Yahuwah is going to raise up everybody. Now there's a place that's committed, secret place, that's committed to the righteous souls. Because you ain't gonna commit no place to the wicked. Right? No secret place. No place that you don't want to be found or detected. Right? He says, and El Elyon shall appear upon the seat of judgment, and misery shall pass away, and the long suffering shall have an end. Why? Because it's judgment time. He's restored the Eretz. He's brought the souls of those who were committed to certain places. Right? He's brought everyone before him. Right? And listen. But judgment only shall remain. But judgment only shall remain. Truth shall stand, and belief shall wax strong. Right? Only thing that's going to remain is Torah. Truth. Emunah. Right? Emunah shall be strong. Right? Faith in Yahuwah will be strong. Listen. And the work shall follow, and the reward shall be shown. Catch me. Every man's going to give an account for the things he's done in his body. Yahuwah is going to reveal the rewards of the righteous before the face of the wicked. Yahuwah is going to manifest before their eyes the reward of their righteousness. He says, listen, and the work shall follow, and the reward shall be shown, and the good deeds shall be a force, and the wicked deeds shall bear no rule. Listen, Yahuwah is going to show the wicked their wickedness. And there is nothing they can do to change it. Because they're filthy still. There's nothing you can say. There's no authority that you can assert. There's no power that you can speak in behalf of. He says, and I want to go back to this. Verse 32. And the earth shall restore those that are asleep in her. Yeah, we gonna be changed. It's gonna restore us. Right? And so shall the dust those that dwell in silence. Everyone. Right? And the secret places shall deliver those souls that were committed unto them. Secret places. I was committed unto them. You know, in the witness of Yahushua Hamashiach, having received Yahuwah's Ruach HaKodesh, there's so much to be understood by the Ruach of wisdom and revelation and the knowledge of him. Shaul prayed that the eyes of your understanding would be enlightened, that you would know what is the hope of your calling. See, you need to know that Yahuwah has a guarantee for your righteousness. Everybody's going to stand before Yahuwah. Everybody's going to be judged before Yahuwah. Listen. He says in 36th verse is where we pick up. Then said I, Avraham, prayed first for the inhabitants of Sodom. And here's Ezra. You know, Ezra is concerned about the prayer of the wicked. Right? And you know, when you consider Avraham, right? Avraham prayed. He said, you know, if you find one, and you know, it got to the point where, you know, you know, he was like, well, you know, I know you're going to save a lot, but, you know, what if, you know, there were this number of people? Would you destroy the city? If you had this number of righteous people. Yahuwah says, no, I wouldn't destroy the city. And then Abraham asked him again, said, well, you know, Yahuwah, what if it was this number of people? And Yahuwah said, no, even with this number, I would not destroy the city. And then Abraham asked this, I think, at least 4 times, maybe 5, I can't remember. But at the end, the number was a small number. Right? Abraham praying on behalf of the wicked. Right? Because Lot was all ready to be delivered. Right? He was going to deliver righteous Lot. Right? Who was vexed. Right? Right? So, Yahuwah destroyed Sodom. Abraham prayed. Yahuwah had committed to saving, but he knew already the only people that he was living out of Sodom and Gomorrah was Lot and his daughters, not his sons. Right? His wife, but she turned back. Ezra. And Moshe for the fathers that sinned in the wilderness. You know, Moshe prayed for the fathers that had sinned in the wilderness. And yet Yahuwah had destroyed them in the wilderness because they didn't want to keep Yahuwah's commandments. They wanted to murmur and complain, right? So Ezra is trying to show Yahuwah, picture, if you will, the need to pray for the wicked. Right? Right? So he says here, and Yahshua, after him, for Yasharal, in the time of Achan. As you know, Israel went out to battle. Right? They went out to battle. And they didn't even require a lot of people to take this particular fight. It only took I can't remember how many men. I think it was only 1,000 plus men. Something. It wasn't even a significant number. Right? When you consider going to battle, right? Right? And they went out to fight these people. Right? And they lost. I think they lost 130 something men, and they came running back with their hands between their tails between their legs. That's tail between. Right? And Joshua was like, Yahusha, Joshua was like, Yahuwah. Oh, what is the problem? Why have you brought us over to the Jordan? Wouldn't it would have been easier for us just to remain on the other side of the Jordan? You know? Praying, throwing dust on his head, rending his clothes, praying on his face before the altar. You would get up. This is judgment to fellow Israel because they violated my Torah. And if you don't get to the bottom of it, it's going to continue to happen. Right? This is what you got to do. So, Yahuwah had the nation, right, and the tribes, right, stand before him. And the elders of the tribes, then the families of the tribes, right? And it came down to this Achan, right? Of the tribe of Judah. Right? Right? So Achan, he thought it was a cool thing to go ahead and snatch up some good gold and bury it underneath his tent. When Yahuwah told the nation, he said, don't take nothing from them. Burn it all. Kill it all. Destroy it all. Right? Right? Achan was like, nah, I think I'm going to hold on to this. Now, Yahshua was praying for the nation. Right? But if Achan hadn't come forth, they would have continued to be destroyed. Right? But there was no getting away from it. Yahshua told Achan, he said, listen, what is this that you've done? Go ahead and come clean, in essence. Come clean to Yahuwah. Then he had his own reason and excuse for why he took these little goodly things and hid them in his camp. He made him go get them. And then he brought his whole family. And Yahuwah destroyed them all. But Yahshua prayed for the nation. Wickedness. Right? He says here, and Samuel and David for the destruction, right? Because, David, at one point David numbered Israel. Just kept doing things that were just not right. And, Yahuwah had to. And, Samuel and David for the destruction. David interceded all the time. Samuel interceded all the time for the nation, right? Then he says, right? Then he says, and Shlomo for them that should come to the sanctuary. So listen, if your people turn away from you and they serve other else, and would you have mercy on them? Yeah, if they turn to you. Shlomo praying for the people, right? Yet Shlomo himself led to the destruction and demise of the nation, right? A man who had Yahuwah's Ruach HaKodesh. He had Yahuwah's Ruach of wisdom and understanding until he got lifted up, communed with his own heart. Then the Ruach left him. So Ezra is bringing these accounts, reminding Yahuwah of the wickedness of the nation and how they need to be prayed for. Right? Right? So he says, and Elihu for those that received the rain. Right? Because, Yahuwah sent a drought. Wicked nation. And Eliyahu had to pray for him. Right? The nation, right? And for the dead that he might live. So that widow woman that he told her to feed him. She only had enough meal for her son and her, and enough oil to make food and then to die. He said, no, you give that to me. Yahuwah's got you. And so they ate throughout the famine, right? Right? They ate throughout the famine. But, in the process, the woman's son dies. The woman's like, look, have you brought this judgment upon me and my son? Right? Only son. And Eliyahu took the boy upstairs, right? cried to Yahuwah, saying, Yahuwah, this woman, she been a blessing to us. He laid on the boy 3 times, and the boy, life came back into the boy. He took him back to the mother. That's what he's referencing in Ezra. Yahuwah had people praying for Israel, right? Then he says, and Zechariah, for the people in the time of Sennacherib, I think that's Canchevira, and many for many, right? So, Ezra's pointing out this pattern of prayer for a nation that constantly is in and out of wickedness, right? Having to live with the consequences of their wickedness. Now, they're Yahuwah's people. Yaakov is his firstborn, right? Right? Yaakov is his firstborn. So here we got Yaakov, right? His firstborn, constantly in and out of wickedness. Then he says, even so now, seeing the corruption is grown up, even now, our people are wicked. They are in captivity under the Babylonians. And all I'm doing is I'm praying on behalf of the people. Right? Then he says, even so now at his time, seeing corruption is grown up and wickedness is increased, and the righteous have prayed for the wicked, wherefore shall it not be so now? So he said, listen, why can't it be now that you... Why can't you just deal with the end now? Why can't this be now? Yahuwah, deliver your people. How come this people that you're called by your name, how can it be now? Wickedness is now. Right? He says, even so now, seeing corruption is grown up, and wickedness is increased, and the righteous have prayed for the wicked constantly. Right? From the time of Abraham, and you identified your people, Yaakov, until now, corruption is grown up, and wickedness is increased, and the righteous have prayed for the wicked. Wherefore shall it not be so now also? Right? Praying for these wicked Israelites. Can't you bring it? Can't you bring the reward now? Right? He says, listen. He says, the angel answered me and said, the present life is not the end, right? Where much glory abides. The present time, right? That you're in is not the season of the manifestation of the glory, right? Right? He says, he answered me and said, the present life that you're in is not the end. It can't be the end. Right? It can't be the end. You can't want it to happen now because this glory, right, has to come. My son has to come. The witness of the Ruach HaKodesh, The water and the blood has to come. I have to have this glory in earthen vessels. It's just not there yet. He says, he answered me and said, this present life is not the end where much glory abides. Therefore have they prayed for the weak. You know. See, you gotta realize, man, these people had sin consciousness. They didn't have the witness of Yahushua HaMashiach. They didn't have the glory. See, that's why we have a treasure in earthen vessels that they didn't have. That's why they prayed for the wicked. Wicked Israelites. They were constantly in and out of sin because they had sin consciousness, which Ezra had alluded to from Adam. They just had the propensity to wickedness. Moshe prayed for them and they died in the wilderness. They had a propensity to. Avraham prayed for Sodom. And the whole city was destroyed. And listen, he says, he answered me and said, this present life is not the end. See, where you're at in your time, in your space, though you're experiencing the wickedness and the evil of Babylon, listen, this thing ain't come to a full yet. This is not the end. This can't be the end, right? Why can't it be the end? He says, this life is not the end. Where much glory abides, therefore have they prayed for the weak. See, the glory that abided is that glory that Yahushua had at his baptism, right? That Ruach HaKodesh that came into the Oretz and remained here, right? That glory set the precedence of the incoming kingdom. It hadn't happened yet. Ezra was given a clarity of thought and understanding in relationship to the nature of the events. They weren't all specific, but they were the nature of the events that were going to occur. I mean, when I mean specific, they were exactly what the angel said. But he had more detail than Daniel, right? But Revelations have more detail than Ezra. But you see how they point to the same thing and the same events, right? So here we have him saying, where much glory abides, therefore have they prayed for the weak. But the day of doom shall be the end of the time. The day of doom shall be the cessation or the end, the ceasing of all time. The doom. He's not talking about the return of Yahushua and him serving judgment with a rod of iron. He's talking about after that. Right? Because Ezra wants the reboot. Ezra wants the reboot. He wants the reboot now. Ezra wants this world restarted. He wants this reboot. Right? But the angel says, but the day of doom shall be the end of this time, and the beginning of immortality for to come, wherein corruption has passed. Corruption is passed under the new heaven and the new eretz. Right? Right? It's not the period in which Yahushua comes to gather us, right, and establishes us on the eretz in the land that he has for us. He gonna come on that white horse. He gonna come on that white horse and he gonna judge these nations. And we, his people, are going to witness his reign in the eretz. If Yahuwah should allow me to live as long, which I would surely hope that he would, but if he doesn't, it's all right. Nevertheless, I'll be that patient brother whose soul is in that secret place, awaiting for Yahuwah to bring forth the eretz again after the 7-day sleep. I'll wait. Right? He says here, but the day of doom shall be the end of this time and the beginning of immortality for to come, wherein corruption is past, temperance is at an end, intemperance is at an end, infidelity is cut off, righteousness is grown, and truth is sprung up. That's the new heaven and the new earth. That's the place that only those who receive the witness of Yahushua Mashiach will gain entrance in. Only those who are born again are going to experience this. You know, listen. Yahuwah has a place prepared. Secret place for you to abide in, right? If you should leave here until the time that he does the reboot. You got to understand this. You got to understand this. The reboot is coming, right? Yahushua's coming too. Oh, and that's sooner than the reboot. Because the reboot don't come until after the 1,000-year reign. After the 400-year reign and the 1,000 years that Hasatan has been locked up. A reboot don't occur till after that. But you know, Yahushua's coming to gather his people. Yahushua's coming to wage war on these wicked nations for what they've done to his people, right? For Yasharal and Yehuda, but for the grafted in Gentiles. Because, you know, they're going to suffer too. Because if they're in a Hamashiach, they're going to suffer. You know, and this is the thing about the Gentiles, right? It's easy to hide for them. It's not easy for us to hide. Right. It's not easy for us to hide. Because we're going to be persecuted just because of what we look like. They won't necessarily suffer the same suffering. Right? See, Yahuah's going to put you to the test. Because tribulation has come. Yeah, see, you got to experience tribulation. Right? Do you really love Yahuah? Do you really love Yahuah's people? Do you really love your cove? Do you really love Yahuah's people? Right? Are you going to stand for Yahuah's people? Are you going to be numbered amongst Yahuah's people? Yahushua's going to come back for those whom he has gathered. He's coming back to gather those who are amongst the nation that have received the witness. You ain't gathering these wicked brews. You know, it ain't even much like it was before Yahushua Mashiach's time. All you had to do was, all the priests had to do was offer a sacrifice on behalf of the people every year. And if you were Israel, you was good. Yeah, you had to keep Yahuah's law, statutes, and commandments. But, you participated in that feast day, and you offered up that sacrifice. You presented what you had before you. You was good. It was good for a whole year. Right? It ain't that way with these wicked brews. You got to receive witness of Yahushua Mashiach. You got to have the Ruach HaKodesh. You got to experience the glory. You have to experience the glory. You got to be amongst that much glory crew. You got to have this treasure in earthen vessels, that the excellency of the glory may be of Yahuah and not of you, of ourselves. Got to understand this. So he says, and shall no man be able to save him that is destroyed, nor to oppress him that had gotten the victory. See, ain't nobody going to be able to do nothing to those who have endured, those who have overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the words of their testimonies, and that did not love their lives unto death. No one is going to be able to overcome them, right? No one's going to get the victory over them. No man. Then shall no man be able to save him that destroyed. You done. Stand before you in his judgment. You done. You stand before Yahuah and his judgment. You done. Ain't nobody gonna just rescue you. These wicked nations. These wicked nations do stuff like this all the time. They do stuff like this all the time. Destroy people to gain the up, the one up. You ain't gonna be oppressed. You can't oppress the people of Yahuah no longer. Listen, he says, I answered then and said, for this is my first and last saying. Right. He said that it had been better not to have given the earth to Adam or else when it was given him to have restrained him from sinning. You should never give him the Reds. Should never give him the Reds. And if you did give him the Reds, you should have kept him from sinning. That's Ezra's response to you. If you would have done it this way, would have been a problem. You should have, could have done it this way. Right? Right? He says, for what profit is it for men now in this present time to live in heaviness? Profit is it? You know, to live on this arrest. Keeping Torah, right? Suffering, heaviness, right? Right? And after death, to look for punishment, right? Or for the wicked. This is the wicked, right? What profit is it? I mean, what benefit is it? You know, you get these people who live wickedly on the Eretz because of Adam. And then, after death, there's nothing left but punishment. Ezra, you will never be able to understand the mind of Yahuwah. You don't have the Ruach HaKodesh, right? And me, who have the Ruach HaKodesh, got enough sense to know by the Ruach HaKodesh that it is nothing that I need to worry myself about. I just need to have emunah in the fact that this witness that I have received in emunah is promised me eternal life. Right? Right? He says, "Oh, Adam, what have you done? For though it was you that sinned, you are not fallen alone, but we all that come of you. For what profit is it unto us?" Adam, you had the garden. You had Yahuwah in the cool of the day. You had Eve. And though she did what she did, all you had to do was just, because he called you to be the head, and you needed to lead and by example. And when she did that, you should have made inquiry of her as to what she was eating and consuming. And then you should have revealed to Yahuwah what she had done. But you ain't do that, because if you would have, you would have been all right. You would have dealt with Eve, right? Or Eve would have probably get put out the garden. You would have gave Adam. Would have gave him another helpmeet, right? Right? He says, "What have you done?" He says, "For though it was you that sinned, you are not fallen alone, but we all that come of you." Right? Sin consciousness. Right? For what profit is it unto us, if there be promised us an immortal time, whereas we have done the work that bringeth death? What did you do? You jacked us all up. Yahuwah has promised us an eternal life, but what benefit have we? Because we have sin consciousness. We born in sin and shapen in iniquity. What have you done? We ain't going to do nothing but bring forth death. He says, for what profit is it unto us if there be a promise us an immortal time, whereas we have done the works that bring death, and that there is a promise us of everlasting hope, whereas ourselves being most wicked are made vain. I got a promise of eternal mortal life, but because of my wickedness, I can't even achieve it. I can't even have it. I can't even partake in it. He says, and that there are laid up for us dwellings of health and safety, whereas we have lived wickedly. These things will be made available to us, but we have lived wickedly. Ain't nothing but death and judgment. Right? He says, and that the glory of El Elyon is kept to defend them which have led a weary life, whereas we have walked in the utmost wickedness ways of all. Yahuah's promise is for the weary of heart, or the weary. Those that are enduring hardship and sufferings. Those that are not cursing Yahuah. Those that are not suffering and worshiping idols, but those that are serving and trusting Yahuah. Right? Because that the glory of El Elyon is kept to defend them that have led a weary life. That weary life is more so a life of righteous persecution. Right? Your suffering that you are experiencing is because of your righteousness, where our judgment is because of our wickedness, and we can't partake in the glory. We can't partake in the glory, right? So he says, and that there should show a paradise whose fruits endure forever, wherein is security and medicine, since we shall not enter into it. Now he's fussing at Adam now. It's his fault. But yet Yahuah still has those who serve him. He still has those that won't bow a knee to Baal. He still has those who will release their emunah in the Basor, in the Torah. Right? He still has them. And because he has, he has a place for them. See, you gotta understand, right? This is for the righteous. Right? Now, the righteousness is established in the witness of Yahushua Mashiach. But in that righteousness, there's a demand for continual obedience to Torah. If you continue to obey Torah, having received the witness of Yahushua, being led by the Ruach HaKodesh of truth, that Ruach HaKodesh of truth that reveals Torah. Right? If you do this, then you have a reward. You have a paradise. You have fruit enduring forever. You have security and medicine. Right? Since we shall not enter into it. Right? They won't. The wicked. Right? He's arguing with Adam. Right? Right? For we have walked in unpleasant places, right? And that the face of them which have used obstinance shall shine above the stars, whereas our faces shall be blacker than darkness. See, those who few in number, right, who abstain from wickedness, who keep the Torah, right? The majority of them, you know. He says, and that the faces of them which have used abstinence, shall shine above the stars. Who use abstinence? What is he referring to? Keep Torah. Those who have kept Yahuah's Torah have used abstinence. They have abstained from violating Torah. They had abstained from other else. They've abstained from worshiping on another day other than the day that Yahuwah was given. They have abstained from killing and murder. Right? They have abstained from coveting their neighbor, lusting up for their neighbor's wife, manservant, all of the above. Everything that the Torah said they did, and they did not, and they did, and abstained from violating Torah, right? He says they gonna shine above the stars, whereas our faces, right, our faces, nation, right, our faces shall be blacker than darkness. Right? Because there's no shine. There's no glory. There's no glory. See, that's why you have to understand the witness brings glory. It's a shine. It's a treasure. It's the excellency of the glory. See, you who receive the witness of Yahushua HaMashiach, who have his Ruach HaKodesh, has a glory on the inside of you, in your belly. It's the Ruach HaKodesh of Yahuwah. It's a light. It's the same light that Yahuchanan and Peter, James, and John witnessed as Yahuwah was transfigured before him, shown from the inside out. It's the glory. It's that what separates us. It's that shine. It's what causes you to keep Torah, walking in obedience, declaring Yahuwah's truth. He says, for while we lived and committed iniquity, we consider not that we should begin to suffer for it after death. Right? Now, he's speaking in reference to the sin consciousness that was passed from Adam, right, to all mankind. All mankind has to deal with, come to grips with, right, the idea that this sin consciousness has to be dealt with, because if it's not dealt with, then the end result is judgment and doom. But in Ezra's time, he had to rely on the praying and the prayer of the saints, of the righteous, of those who were doing what's right, to bring light to, the nation as a whole. Right? See, we have a glory they didn't have. We have a glory that they didn't have. You have to understand this, man. You got to understand this, right? We have a glory. And because of the glory, we're going to participate in the reboot. The reboot. The reboot is something that we as a people have to experience. We got to be rebooted, right? We got to be rebooted in order to participate in the great reboot. Hallelujah. You got to be born again of the water and the Ruach HaKodesh. You got to receive the Lamb of Yahuwah that was slain from the foundations of the earth. You got to be born of the Ruach HaKodesh, the water and the blood. You got to be rebooted. This is how he's going to identify us. Right? Because with this rebirth, right, this reboot, right, the Most High establishes us, positions us for the reboot, the new heaven and the new earth. He establishes us for the new heaven and new earth. See, you got to be rebooted. You got to be born again. See, you got to have sin consciousness removed. Only thing that can do that is the blood of Yahuah'S. Right? That's why you got to be born of the water. You got to go down. A ceremonial cleansing and washing. It's a symbol of death and resurrection. You got to go down and come up. But you have to receive that blood and imunah for that transition to be effective. You got to receive Yahush's blood as the atonement for your sins. You got to be born again. Right? And then and only then are you positioned to be filled with this Ruach HaKodesh, which is a reboot. Got to be rebooted, right? He says, blacker than darkness. For while we live and commit iniquity, we consider not that we should begin to suffer for it after death. Then answered the angel, he me, and said, this is the condition of the battle which man that is born upon the arrest of the arrests shall fight. This is what you got to fight. This is the real battle. In the arrests. The battle to bring your body under the subjection of the Ruach HaKodesh of Yahuwah and the word of Yahuwah, right? To be led by the Ruach HaKodesh, to meditate in Torah day and night, to be established in the witness. See, this is the battle, right? This is the struggle. This is the fight. Right? And you know, we've received the Ruach HaKodesh. We are in a better position than Ezra and the nation were. That's why Yahuwah had to establish his glory and the arrests when the end was coming. See, Yahushua had fulfilled all things. He came and died to restore a kingdom, to reboot a people. And this is the reboot. Yeah, Yahushua has commenced the reboot. He had to reboot us first. See, it makes sense, because, Yahushua, Mashiach witness is to all men. And all men have sinned. Yahuwah has chosen Yasharal and Yahudah to be his own, right? But Yahushua HaMashiach's reboot is for all men, because all men have come under Adam's sin, right? And if you are of the other nations and you understand Adam's sin, and you understand the nature of sin and how Yahushua HaMashiach's witness changes that, right? And you receive it in Emunah, then the reboot is for you. Then answered me and said, this is the condition. Then answered he me and said, this is the condition of the battle which man is born into, in the arrest they shall fight. That if he be overcome, he shall suffer as you have said. This is the battle. If you get overcome, well, you're going to suffer. But, if you fight the good fight of Emunah, you stay focused in Torah and the Basura, you be led by his Ruach HaKodesh, because these are the sons of Eluah. You shall receive the prize. He says, listen, that if he be overcome, he shall suffer as you have said. But if he gets the victory, he shall receive the things that I say. I'm in it to win it. I'm in it to win it. You can expect the Hasatan to turn it up. It's going to get turned up. It's going to get turned up. It's going to get turned up. But you have to be convinced. You have to be willing to stagger not at the promises Yahuwah has made to you through unbelief. But be strong in Emunah, being fully persuaded that what Yahuwah has promised, Yahuwah will perform. You got to be in that place. You got to be in that place, right? You got to be in that place. He says, for this is the life whereof Moshe spoke unto the people while he lived, saying, choose life. Choose eternal life. Choose the Torah. Choose to obey Yahuwah's word and live. You'll live in this life and you'll live in the eternal. In this life, yeah, you will have persecution, you're going to have suffering. But you know what? If you, listen, in this life, if you keep Yahuwah's Besor and Torah, he's promised to bring blessings because of your obedience. This is the battle. This is the struggle, Yasharal. This is the struggle, Yehuda. This is the struggle, grafted in Gentiles. This is the struggle. But listen, if you're in Yahuwah and have received the witness of Yahushua HaMashiach, you understand that, listen, you got victory. You have victory. You have victory. Listen. Nevertheless, right? They believed him not. Right? They didn't believe Moshe. Nor yet the prophets after him. They didn't even believe Ezra. They didn't receive anything he said. Nothing. No thing. and they despise Yahuah's Torah. He said, but Ezra did. That's why there's still only a remnant. Only a few are going to hear this word. Only a few are going to receive his witness. Only a few are going to obey this Torah. Right? He says, nevertheless, they believe not him, nor yet the prophets after him. No, nor me, which I have spoken. They didn't believe me either. Right? He says that there should not be such heaviness in their destruction, as shall be joy over them that are persuaded to Yeshua. Listen, there's going to be more joy for those that are persuaded to do what is right, to obey Yahuwah, and to receive Yeshua. Right? But you got to be willing to obey Yahuwah and receive Yeshua. You got to be willing to obey Yahuwah and receive Yeshua. Right? He says, that there should not be such heaviness in their destruction, as shall be joy over them that are persuaded to Yeshua. I answered that and said, I know Adonai, and that El Elyon is called merciful, and that he has mercy upon them which are not yet come into the world, and upon those also that turn to his Torah. So Yahuwah has mercy on the people that haven't even, he had mercy upon me at Ezra's time. Oh yeah, he had mercy upon me. And now that I've turned to Torah, I understand who I am. What? I'm in the witness, having received the Ruach HaKodesh of Yahuwah. I've received the water and the blood. What? He says, I answered them and said, I know Adonai, that El Elyon is called merciful, and that he has mercy upon them which are not yet come into the world, and upon those also that turn to his Torah, and that he is patient and long-suffering those that have sinned. Yeah, because he did that with the nation until the point where he just ultimately sent them into captivity, right? As his creation. And that he is bountiful. He's bountiful, for he is ready to give where it's needed. And that he is in great mercy for the multitudes, more and more mercies than that of present and that of past, and also to them which are to come, which is true. Yahuwah shows mercies on the thousands of them that love him and keep his commandments, past, present, and future. Yahuwah doesn't change. Yahuwah is merciful. You have to understand the requirements. The people have to understand the requirements. The nation has to, I'm going to be merciful. Right? I'm going to be merciful. Right? But I'm also going to be in judgment. I had agreed with Avraham to save a minimal, if there was a minimal righteous, to save the entire city, but I couldn't find him, so I had to destroy it all. Yahuwah is merciful. He was merciful enough to go and get Lot out of there. Merciful. He says, and that he is of great mercy for the multitudes, more and more mercies to them that are present and are past, and also them which are to come. For if he shall not multiply his mercies, the world would not continue with them that inherit therein. If you ran out of mercy, listen, the whole program stops. No reboot. Done. It's over, right? 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 And he pardons. For if he did not so, of his goodness, that they which have committed iniquities might be eased of them, the 10,000 parts of men should not remain living. Yeah, yeah. Yahuwah is merciful. Yahuwah is merciful. And Yahuwah's judgment is a result of mankind not receiving Yahuwah's mercies. They don't want him. They don't want him. Right? Right? He says, and being judged, it is he, if he should not forgive them that are cured with his word, right? You know, listen. If you keep Torah before you day and night, if you meditate on Torah day and night, if you continue in what Yahuwah's word says, right? And put out the multitudes of contentions, right? There should be very few left purchased in an innumerable multitude. Yeah, you know, listen, the fact is that, you know, Yahuwah is merciful. Listen, Yahushua came and died for a nation. He came to his own and they didn't receive him. But the remnant that did, right, to them he gave power to be the sons of Elu. Listen, Yahuwah is a just and fair Elohim. And anyone that would suggest otherwise is an emissary of Hasatan. Right? Yahuwah is righteous. Listen, Yahuwah is rebooted me. I've been rebooted, right? And Yahuwah's going to reboot everything, right? And he's doing it for me. And you who received the reboot, the rebirth, the renewal covenant, right? You who are of the other nations that received the reboot because of the consciousness of Adon that was passed on all men. You gotta receive this reboot, man of Yah, woman of Yah, you must be born again of the water and the Ruach HaKodesh in order to experience Yahuwah's reboot. You have to receive the witness of Yahushua Mashiach in order to receive the reboot. Have to do it. That's Ezra, the 7th chapter. Finally completed it. We move on into the 8th chapter, right? Yahuwah has a plan. You may not understand it. You may never understand it. Actually, you just need to receive it in Emunah and allow his Ruach HaKodesh to give you comfort, because he is that comforter. And then let him lead you and guide you into truth. Yahuwah, I pray right now in the name of Yahushua Mashiach for the words that you have given me to give to them. I pray that they would keep them. I pray that it would be multiplied into their hearts, that it would be established on their insides. Yahuwah, this word, this Besorah, this Torah, I pray that it would speak life, volumes to those that have an ear to hear. Yahuwah, I pray that it would cause men and women to pursue your righteous Yeshua, faith and Emunah in the Ruach HaKodesh, the water and the blood, that they would be born again if they haven't been born again. Yahuwah, I pray in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach that this witness would be received unto all those who have an ear to hear. Let the words of my mouth and meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, Yahuwah, my strength and my redeemer. Man of Yah, woman of Yah, called to greatness. Woman of Yahuwah, beautifully and wonderfully made today. Yahuwah's favored you. Yeah, get rebooted. Get the reboot. Get the reboot. Yeah. That's the only way you're going to deal with that sin consciousness. You got to experience the reboot. And that's the only way you're going to experience the reboot of the kingdom. The new heaven and the new earth. That's the only way. If you remain and make it, right, through tribulation to the coming of Yahushua, gathering of his people. Listen. It's going to be because you got the reboot. You received the witness, the Ruach HaKodesh, the water and the blood. Man of Yah, woman of Yah, today, that's all I have. And, be blessed. I want you to be blessed. And with that, I say shalom, shalom, shalom.
Torah guardian, speaking the absolute truth. Torah nation.